As America comes to grips with a recession, another key metric used to gauge inflation just came out. The June Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index has the inflation rate higher than expected at 6.8% year over year.
That is up from May's rate of 6.3%. The PCE is said to be easier for the Federal Reserve to determine core inflation. It places a lower weight on the prices of gasoline and rent, which have sent CPI inflation skyrocketing.
So what does it all mean? Let's get some analysis from former National Economic Council director and host of the Kudlow Show over on Fox Business, Larry Kudlow, who's, as you can see, not wearing a necktie because it's Casual Friday. Hey, Larry, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Morning, folks. Thank you for having me.
It's always great to get you. So there has been a blizzard of bad numbers for the administration this past week. But at the same time, you know, the president got that big tax and spend bill, so he's feeling great.
Yeah, well, he may feel great, but the rest of the country's not going to feel so great. I mean, look, on the battle of the recession, the George Orwellian recessionary battle, when you have two consecutive negative quarters, since World War II, there's never not been a recession, ever.
Right.
So to say it's not a recession is, I think, a reach. It's theoretically possible, but it is highly, highly unlikely. So that's point number one. Point number two, the inflation number you mentioned a second ago is actually higher than May, so that's not good. Underlying inflation may be about 7 or 8% right now. Number three, why would you raise taxes when you're in a recession?
Yeah.
This is the part that I simply do not understand. And I think this reconciliation bill, which was kind of sprung on the Republicans, I mean, the ink was barely dry on the vote for the so-called CHIPS Plus bill, which is $284 billion in spending. Now they come up with this bill, which is $739 billion tax hike, right, with $583 billion of spending. So wait a minute, let me get this right. Sit back for a minute. In the space of 48 hours,
right,
you have these two huge bills, okay? CHIPS Plus, which is an industrial policy corporate welfare bill, and then you have reconciliation, all right? So the sum total is $870 billion in new spending. $870 billion in new spending, which is guaranteed to raise inflation, and you have $740 billion in higher taxes. So there is no deficit reduction. There's a massive tax increase, which is going to do great harm to businesses and working folks. And finally, you have this huge volume of spending, which, I mean, I thought there was an agreement in Washington that too much spending causes higher inflation. Tax hikes are going to cause a worse recession. If you guys can figure out the economic logic of this, please come on my show and explain it to me, because I don't get it.
You know, Larry,
I've only been doing this for about 50 years, so you're going to have to help me out on this.
Okay. I mean, I think my 6-year-old knows when you don't have a lot of money in your bank account, you don't go and spend more. Exactly. They're calling this the Inflation Reduction Act. Is that just a spin?
Well, look, it would have made George Orwell proud. I mean, it's the worst misuse of the English language I've ever seen. This has nothing to do with inflation reduction. This is a whole lot of subsidies and corporate welfare and climate change, and they're going to throw in a big increase, $225 billion increase to Obamacare, and they're going to put, one of my favorites here is they're going to give the IRS, as though they don't have enough agents to go chasing waitresses and Uber drivers around the city. They're going to give them another $80 billion, and that $80 billion is supposed to generate $120 billion in revenues.
Unbelievable.
So,
Ainsley, they're going to harass
people. When you go out on the street, Ainsley, you've got to have a mask or something, unless some IRS agent is going to tail you wherever you go to increase your tax bill. I mean, that's what this is all about. It doesn't make any sense.
I only have 30 seconds left, but what about poisoning the well? They passed the CHIPS deal, and they have the secret 700-page bill ready to go behind the scenes. Mitch McConnell feel like he was double-crossed. Does he have a right to feel that way?
Yeah, I think he does. I think he does, because they sprung it. The ink was barely dry. You're absolutely right on the CHIPS Plus bill. And Joe Manchin said 2 weeks ago, he said, I'm not voting for any of this until I see the July inflation numbers, which everyone knew are coming out in mid-August. Whatever happened to those July inflation numbers, Joe? I don't get that.
Larry, we look forward to watching your show at 4 o'clock today.
It's not good.
Not good indeed.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Not good.
Yeah, his show.
And the weekend's good, so have fun this weekend, Larry. Thank you.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.